Progressive Congresswoman who advocated for canceling rent turns out to be a landlord. And at the same time, the city of Detroit is putting new limitations on landlords who can receive rental assistance. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have two interesting articles for you today, and they're both coming out of the city of Detroit. And one has to do with a sophomore congresswoman who advocated for canceling rent, and guess what? She's a bit of a hypocrite because she is a landlord. And the second article has to do with new limitations that the city of Detroit is putting on receiving the rental assistance for landlords. And there's something about the legislation that they passed that makes it so that the tenants want the landlords not to be able to get the rental assistance and want the landlords to fail so that they can get paid. But before I get into those two articles, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you want to see on this channel. I'm going to work to keep bringing you articles about the eviction moratorium and other news that's of interest to landlords. So let's get into it. The first article comes from the Detroit News, and it says, Talib defends Detroit rental income amid conservative attacks. Now, as you know, I already did a video on the other squad member who also is a landlord, and I'll throw that link up over here so that you can see that video, which I did a few months ago. But now, come to find out that Rashida Talib also is a landlord. Okay, so we have two squad members, both of them advocating for canceling rent and at the same time punishing small landlords with this ridiculous eviction moratorium. And I just can't stand hypocrites like this, okay? That while their tenants are paying, there are plenty of landlords across the country who are not getting rental assistance, who are suffering through this, could have their credit ruined, could face foreclosure and bankruptcy because of these eviction moratoriums, and they're doing nothing to help them. So let's see what the article says about the situation. U.S. Representative Rashida Tlaib, an outspoken defender of tenant rights, is defending rental income she's received as a landlord. Conservatives are criticizing the Detroit Democrat for sponsoring legislation that would cancel rents while receiving $15,000 to $50,000 in rent during 2020. The rent was for a residential property in Detroit valued at $100,000 to $250,000, according to a financial disclosure report posted this week. So yeah, she received somewhere between $15,000 and $50,000 in rent, which isn't really that much, and she says it's for only a single house, so she is the typical small mom and pop landlord. And as I said in my previous video, 58% of small mom and pop landlords right now are missing rent because of this eviction moratorium. So she should be sympathetic to their cause considering she is one of us, okay, but she's not. You know, she's a politician first, and she cares more about looking good on paper and trying to get as many votes as possible. And she's not solving this issue with her belief that we should cancel rent. Remember, the thing is, when they put this eviction moratorium in place, it didn't immediately make sure that landlords would be reimbursed 100% of their lost rental income. No, they put a lot of strict stipulations on it saying that, tenants had to meet certain requirements to even be eligible for rental assistance. So rather than even following all of the strict stipulations and just saying, okay, we're going to pay the landlords whose tenants meet this directly, and then all the other landlords are still able to go about their business, a lot of places, including Detroit, completely shut down their eviction court. I mean, just completely shut it down. So there were all these tenants who weren't even eligible for the eviction moratorium relief or for rental assistance, and they all got a free ride because now nobody can be evicted. And so that's why there's a case right now suing in the city of Detroit because it was such a violation of the constitutional rights up there. And I hope they win. I hope that this goes up to the Supreme Court and these landlords are able to get reimbursed. But it really makes me mad that there's politicians out there and they're two-faced like this. Tlaib has strongly pushed for a national eviction moratorium during the pandemic and supports legislation to cancel rent and home mortgage payments for the duration of the public health crisis. That bill would set up a relief fund for landlords and mortgage companies to cover losses from the canceled payments. Yeah, they want to set up a relief fund, but one, they didn't fund it with enough money to actually cover the losses. Two, there's a lot of people who aren't eligible for it. And three, the ultimate way, the end thing that we need is to be able to get the tenants who are not paying out of our properties. The end of whatever crisis that we're in now is not going to suddenly mean that these people will be able to pay, okay? They're going to eventually have to leave. And sooner is better than later because they're just racking up debts until then. So, the second article I have for you today, and it's also coming out of the city of Detroit, and it's talking about new legislation that the city of Detroit just passed, and I don't like it, okay? Obviously, they probably had good intentions with it, but it's really, really bad because of the things that it could cause. So this article comes from DeadlineDetroit.com, and it says, Detroit swings new hammer against scofflaw landlords. Part of COVID rent aid is held back. The city hits apartment owners where it hurts in a hardball pitch for building code compliance. Ariel Cass, covering residential real estate for Crane's Detroit Business, describes the get tougher step. In an effort to ensure more Detroit rental properties are safe and habitable, the city, since earlier this summer, has been withholding some rental relief money from landlords until they become compliant with city code. Landlords must have a certificate of compliance in order to receive a full payout of COVID emergency rental assistance in the city. The money is given to landlords for back rent and up to 3 months of rent going forward to compensate them for tenants who are behind because of ill effects from the coronavirus pandemic. 20% is held in escrow until a landlord makes any needed repairs. The 20% that is being withheld will be released to tenants if landlords don't become compliant in 3 months. Now, pay careful attention to what I just said, okay? So, let's say a tenant owes you $10,000, a nice even number so that we can do the math simply, right? So the tenant applies for rental assistance and is approved, right? And so your building, though, doesn't meet up to the city's code compliance. So they will only give you $8,000 of what the tenant owes you of that $10,000, and they'll put the other 20%, the other $2,000, into escrow until you fix any needed repairs, right? Sounds pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and it's meant to, motivate the landlords to make needed repairs on the property. Oh, all good. But here's my problem with this, okay? It says that if the landlord doesn't bring the property up to compliance, they give that 20% to the tenant. And I'm like, wait a second here. What does the tenant need what does the tenant need this money for? Okay? I mean, it makes absolutely no sense. Okay? Just to give this tenant a free check. So the tenant not only doesn't have to pay any rent, but then also they get a check for 20% of the rent for doing absolutely nothing, okay? So tenant pays no rent, tenant gets $2,000 for free, okay? And so what does that mean for the tenant? That means that the tenant would be motivated for the landlord to not make the repairs, or they would be motivated to actually damage the property themselves so that they can get this extra $2,000. I mean, think about it, okay? There's a lot of shady tenants out there. And I don't doubt for 1 second that some tenant somewhere would do something like that, okay? They would report the landlord for an issue that didn't exist before. Maybe they caused the damage themselves just so that they would have a chance of getting this money. And then when the inspector comes by to check and see if the problem's been fixed, they would just break the thing again, even if the landlord has repaired it, just so they can get that $2,000, okay? Now, this is a horrible policy, okay? It should never have passed. And anyone who doesn't recognize that it's easily abused is a moron, okay? The city of Detroit thinks that that the tenants are stupid or something. They obviously are going to see straight through this, see that they can easily take advantage of this program and get a free paycheck out of it, meanwhile not paying a penny of rent, and they're going to abuse the heck out of this system. So yeah, I'm going to call just pure crap on this this new policy in the city of Detroit. And there's even a comment down below, and I'm going to read this comment in this article because it's kind of interesting what it says. And it says, if the city received complaints about landlords prior to the pandemic, then those landlords should not receive COVID relief until the residence is up to code. But for those landlords who did not have complaints filed against them prior to the pandemic, may not be able to fix up the residence because the tenants have withheld the money, those landlords should not be penalized and should receive the relief. So yeah, a commenter actually sides, with my opinion, okay? And they're saying that, hey, like maybe the fact that the landlord isn't able to repair the property and bring it up to code has to do with the fact that they didn't get any rent. Okay, did the city ever think of that? Like maybe it's expensive to fix and bring a property up to compliance, and if you haven't received rent in months on end, you're pulling that money out of your pocket. So, then the city withholding it is only making it harder for you to do the repairs. So, yeah, not a lot of common sense or logic in this sort of legislation. And, it immediately paints the landlords as these bad guys who are purposefully not repairing their properties when that's just not the case.